I have a lot of things to say. I have a lot of things to say about the new Star Trek Strange New Worlds Episode 3. It's very confusing, very weird, very good, and very terrible at the same time. Again, I'm very confused. First, the episode starts off with stuff that doesn't make sense. It's just more like Spock apologizing. I'm sorry, I played my music too loud. Oh. And La'an basically going to him to report this like a mother or security person. And she's telling Spock that he's causing a disturbance. It's just like eye rolling as hell. There's two crew members fighting. It's usually in the future that you don't see that in Star Trek because everybody works together a lot better. There's less conflict, but whatever. Um, it's just more of the same. There's like woke stuff, like it's socialism prevailed. It's like, no, dude, I don't think Star Trek knows that there's no socialism, there's no Democrat, Republican, there's none of this politics from today in Star Trek. They've moved way beyond that. So the fact that they're like saying that, it's just like, oh my god, dude, my head's gonna explode. And then we do the whole time thing with Kirk, but it's not really Kirk because he's from an alternate timeline. So Kirk's from an alternate timeline. La'an is from our timeline, I guess, but not really because we've never heard of La'an before, and everybody has been wondering why La'an Noonien Singh is on the Enterprise. How can she be there when they're not supposed to run into Khan, and they should know about this? Like, it would throw everything off. Well, also, why are we facing the Gorn so early? And everything is very confusing. But now, this episode, apparently, I don't know what's going on. I need, like, the showrunners to explain this. It's so vague. But apparently, not only is Kirk from a different timeline and he's obviously dies in this episode, but it doesn't matter because he's an alternate timeline douchebag Kirk. Although I suspect regular Kirk might be too. Who knows? But now why is Khan a child in 1992? Khan isn't supposed to be a child in 1992. He's already supposed to have like been through all these wars and stuff and be in space. So the Romulan person was going back in time to basically stop Khan from doing this, but she hadn't been able to kill him or stop him or something yet, so she was suppressing him. I don't know if that means she was suppressing his age growth or something. He's a child, so I'm confused. So if that's the case, then either we're in another alternate timeline that's not the timeline we all know in Star Trek, or the actual timeline that we all know in Star Trek has been reset. But we all know when you reset a timeline, the old timeline still does exist and continue on, but the new timeline that you're in the present of is an alternate timeline in and of itself. Like in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movie, everything that happens where Kirk's father dies isn't supposed to happen for our Star Trek, so we know everything we're seeing in the movies is an alternate timeline in Star Trek, which then makes the movies more acceptable and watchable, despite the fact that they're still fucking ridiculous and stupid, and the characters aren't the correct characters that we all really know and love. And the writing is not as good as Star Trek really is, just like this show. But apparently this is confirming that something major did change back in the day. So now all the weird things that they're doing that don't make sense cannot make sense because it's not our timeline. And we're not in the Star Trek timeline that we're all used to. We are in a very close one. It is very close, but it's not the actual Star Trek timeline that we're all used to. This is kind of mind-blowing, which means now that we would have the Star Trek timeline that we all know from every other Star Trek. But then we would have a J.J. Abrams Star Trek verse, whatever you want to call it, multiverse. And now we have another one. So this would be a third timeline that we're now paying attention to. Not to be confused with Picard, which was the original Prime timeline that we all know and love from the first ever Star Treks. So we're bouncing around, not only from Trek to Trek and years to years, but timelines to timelines, but also vaguely described or explained timelines. J.J. Abrams' movies, they did explain that this was an alternate timeline to the fans in the background before the movie ever came out, that there's going to be an alternate timeline, something that happens where which is fine, because in the original series and in Next Generation and all the Star Treks we all know and love growing up, it's always been explained that there's just multitudes of multiple timelines going on all over the place, and these little bubbles and universes everywhere. And sometimes they overlap and things get caught, whatever. So that's fine. And this is fine if that's the case. I may not like it because some of those universes are garbage, right? They're awful places, awful times, awful things. But it does take away a little bit from humanity, and how Star Trek is like, we got to space because we work together. But actually, in like millions of other timelines, we get to space the same way, even if we're rotten, grimy pieces of shit. So that's the only thing. It would be nice to see some timelines where like nobody ever makes it to space. Although in this episode 3 of season 2 here, we do find out that Kirk, like, Earth is destroyed almost and whatever. So but we need the showrunners to come out at some point and explain. To this point, I can understand if they didn't, because there may be more of this to go where they think it's like a reveal or something that we're in a different timeline. But I'm not sure by this episode if this episode was the reveal. To me, it's clear as day that it is the reveal that, oh, we're in a different timeline. And many people watching it may not know that. They may think, no, the timeline was saved because what La'an did and what they did with Kirk, and they ended up going back to the right timeline. But no, they're not in the right timeline, because Khan is not supposed to be that age in 1992. And a bunch of other stuff isn't supposed to be happening either. So unless we are in the timeline that we're supposed to be in, and there is no separate timeline, and we are in the original series prime real timeline, the writers are just retarded and stupid, and they don't know what they're doing. That's the only other explanation. So I don't know if that's the case. So I'm going to need somebody from Star Trek or somebody involved in this show to come out and say, we can't tell you now what's going on, but eventually you'll know. That's fine. Okay, I'll wait and see. I get it. Or if they came out and said, oh, yes, yep, by that episode, now you see, yep, we actually are in a different timeline. And so everything is going to be very close, but a little bit different. It's not quite the prime timeline, but it's very close. Okay, I can accept that. In fact, it makes the show more watchable a little bit, even though it is more of a teeny bop dum-dum show compared to the original series and TNG and other things. This episode was a lot like Time's Arrow from TNG mixed with something else. I mean, it had like going back in the time to see the engineer lady, like she was Guinan. So it had a more of a shallowness to it. One of the things I'll say that I liked about it, I will give you a like, because I'm just confused and I want to bash it in some ways. But I'm going to give you the things I liked about it, because there are some things that I did like about it. What I did like about it is I love the idea that the Romulans or aliens, were trying to mess with the with Earth's timeline and suppress stuff and all these sort of things. I think that's kind of interesting. And then when you talk about the temporal agents, and you talk about like the original Voyager and of course the Enterprise, temporal Cold War and stuff like that, I find that somewhat interesting. That they're going into that a little bit. I also really liked like the story with Kirk and La'an. I always thought La'an was a hard ass, never let her guard down, I don't need no man type of person. But in this episode, she was like melting like butter for Kirk. It was very strange. But I think maybe the explanation for that is that she always has her guard up because of her name. And everybody knows that name and who she is, so she's always got this guard up and she won't let anybody get close to her. But because Kirk didn't recognize her, didn't know her name, didn't understand her backstory, she became like vulnerable or kind of touched by that for a second. Plus, he's Kirk, obviously. And I don't think he wasn't really Kirk, right? Because he's another alternate universe Kirk. He's kind of like douchey Kirk a little bit, but not like evil and crazy. But he was just kind of like a little shittier Kirk than Kirk, But still not a bad guy that she apparently falls in love with, kind of. So then at the end, when she dials him up, like he doesn't remember any of this, doesn't know her, nothing, and yet she's connected with him and maybe loves him or something. And so it was very, very emotional as far as that goes. So again, it's funny because new Star Trek does this a lot of times. They lead with emotion, or they pack a punch with emotion. Well, I felt that emotion in this, so I will say that was pretty good. But again, what overrides all of these good things about the episode are the questions of what goddamn universe are we in right now, because I don't know, and it's driving me crazy. That being said, that's all I have to say. And, Star Trek The Next Generation is my favorite Star Trek. But the original series is kind of like the Bible and the Holy Grail of Star Trek. It has to be always. I do like the original series. There are episodes I skip a lot, and I don't watch it on repetitively every year like I do TNG. But I love the movies of the original series. Obviously, they're the best Star Trek movies. But TNG is my favorite. But some of the stuff I like about about these episodes is they do kind of remind me of the original series, but then there's just this not campiness, but there's this silly teenage language. Some of the language they're using in the show is just completely ridiculous and wrong, but then again, it's hard to tell because I can't tell if people are really from this timeline, or even Kirk. Kirk wasn't really Kirk in the episode, so when he said, it's like chess, but for idiots, like, Kirk would never say that, right? Kirk would never be like, well, it's simple. It's like chess. It's like chess, but for idiots. But I don't think Kirk would say for idiots. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would think Kirk would say, it's like chess, but, for people who maybe aren't as advanced, or it's for less it's chess for the simple-minded, or something like that. He would say simple-minded. He wouldn't use words like idiot, stupid. He doesn't use words like that, but maybe he does because this isn't really Kirk. It's Kirk from this other alternate timeline. But even the Kirk from the timeline that's in this show is not the Kirk from the timeline that we're used to, because this isn't the timeline that we're used to, and it's not the prime timeline. We have the prime timeline. We have the Kelvin timeline of the J.J. Abrams movies. We have the prime timeline of all the Star Trek we always know. Does this mean Discovery isn't... I'm trying to find the silver lining here, and the silver lining is that this is a third timeline, and that Discovery and Strange New Worlds both do not take place in the prime timeline, which would explain why Discovery is ridiculously stupid, and why Strange New Worlds is a little bit weird as well. That would really solve all the problems, guys. I am dying. I am hoping that this is the case and they come out and say it. Now, it's sad in some ways because I want to watch the prime timeline. That's what I want to do. But it's not sad because then all the hate I have for Discovery and all the hate I have for this show, it changes, because now I go, oh, Discovery isn't part of the real prime timeline. That explains why things are a little bit different and stupid and whatever. And same thing with Strange New Worlds. And then I can kind of watch them. And although they're still kind of made for stupid people, I can sort of enjoy some of it. Just like the J.J. Abrams movies, I can kind of enjoy them because it's stupid and it's silly and it's not really Star Trek because it's an alternate timeline. So I can just pretend it's taking place in some crazy alternate stupid place, while enjoying like Star Trek on steroids, on an action version of it, which will never be as good, but whatever. I'd rather see something. Although at this point, maybe I'd rather see nothing. Picard Season 3, though, takes place during the prime timeline. So really, if you think about it, the only new Star Trek that we've really gotten is Picard, which is kind of crazy because these are not the prime timeline. Now, again, one of the only other options is the writers are really stupid and they're dumb and they don't realize what they're doing and what they've done. And if that's the case, then this is egregious. And they have ruined Star Trek. I mean, they have ruined it. Like, they've divided the fan base because weird new fans are going to say it doesn't matter. But that's crazy, because if it doesn't matter, then nothing matters. Then why the show doesn't matter? Nothing matters at all. What the hell's the point? Then this is like Days of Our Lives, where the same person dies every week in the hospital, and it's so stupid, and it's just, it would befuddle me. Like, that's it. I gotta stop talking. I gotta get off of here. It's my birthday. What am I doing? Well, it's actually not my birthday anymore. It's June 29th now, but whatever. Anyway, what do you guys think? If you made it this long in the video, I can't believe you did. Write strange new timeline in the comments. I don't know. Strange new timeline in the comments. Leave me your comments. What do you think? Is this the prime timeline? Is this an alternate timeline? Are the writers do they just not know what they're doing? I think they do know what they're doing, and I swear, I'm giving them credit, man. I'm gonna give them credit that they know what they're doing, and they just basically told us that Discovery and Strange New Worlds are an alternate timeline. But it's such a slight alternate timeline in difference that it was hard to figure it out until now. I hope that's the case. If it is, thank you. I actually say thank you. The shows might suck, but at least I can... It's just, in the future, the longer time goes by, the more people don't know that the timelines are timelines. You know what I mean? But I guess it doesn't matter. Someone else's perception, I guess, doesn't matter. And all that matters, I guess, is mine. And because, like, there'll be other people that don't even know all these different timelines. They're just going to think it's all Star Trek. Oh, it's all Star Trek. Ha! And it's like they'll watch it and you'll be like, yeah, but this is the other timeline, right? And they're going to be like, I don't really pay attention to that. I don't know. It's just Star Trek to me. Oh, yeah, but don't you know that it doesn't make any sense that they did this when he's supposed to be there at this time, but now in the future they're doing this? Oh, well, I guess you're right. I guess I didn't think about that. Oh. You know what I mean? So, like, people that are fucking stupid or people that just don't care are not going to care, and it won't matter. But people who can't help but think are going to have a problem. You know what I mean? I'm usually somebody in the middle. I'm somebody in the middle who can ignore shit and whatever, but at the same time, if it's too ridiculous, I can't, and it's fucking stupid, and it pisses me off. And therefore, I have sympathy for the really smart people out there who know all the little things and love Star Trek so much, or that have been watching it and they're like 50 years old. People that are 50 years old who love Star Trek, their heads must be exploding, because this is miserable then for you. So, and it's because it's kind of miserable for me almost. So I can imagine someone who's smart, who's 50, who's watched this their entire lives, because, I mean, I'm at 39, and I'm not very smart. I'm a mediocre person. I think I bring this up every show. I'm not trying to bash myself in every video. I'm a dumb idiot, but I'm just saying I'm a mediocre person. I'm aware of what I am. I'm a very low, mid-average person. And as far as, remembering every episode of every little thing that ever happened ever, and it's all got to line up or I'm going to flip out. No, I'm not going to do that. I understand bending the rules, bending stuff, canon bending around a little bit and things like that, fine. But for the people that are 2 + 2 = 4, mathematical, like, precision, and I feel bad for you guys. And a lot of Star Trek fans are like that. They're very mathematical. They're very scientific. They're very analytical. And for you guys who are super analytical, you must want to choke yourself. I'm out of here. What'd you think of the review? What'd you think of the episode? What do you think? What timeline are we in? Star Trek late night. I'll see you next time. And I'm sorry I recorded this on my fucking phone. Fuck my life. If you leave a super thanks, I will warp speed into your bedroom. I guess it's a birthday super thanks if you leave me one. So thank you. You don't have to. You can just hit the like button, sub, and all that other stuff. But I got to get out of here because I got to work 3 jobs because I have a GED, and that's what happens when you have one of those. I love bashing myself in these videos. All right, guys, I'll see you later.